Hey everybody. So I've been getting a lot of messages and comments about how to have a civil wedding in the Philippines. So I wanted to make a step-by-step video going from start to finish, explaining how the civil wedding process works, what documents you'll need, and what places you'll need to go to marry your Filipino. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. I would like to preface that I'm not a lawyer and I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just someone who went through the civil wedding process in January of 2024, and these are my experiences alone. Also, as we get into certain steps of the process, particularly regarding documentation needed from your country of residence, there may be some slight differences depending on what country you're from. I'm from the United States, so this information directly applies to foreigners looking to get married in the Philippines that are from the United States. So with that said, let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about in the process is timing. If you're trying to get a civil wedding set up and completed within a single trip to the Philippines, your trip's going to need to last from 3 to 4 weeks. This is because after you submit your application for a wedding license, there's a minimum 10 working day waiting period that needs to occur before you can pick up the license and schedule the civil wedding. This was information that I could not find when I was first researching how to have a civil wedding in the Philippines. As may be the case with many of you, my time on my trip scheduled to the Philippines was limited. I was only able to be away from my job for about 2 to 3 weeks. So I ended up scheduling a 3-week trip out there and hoping for the best. I departed for my trip to the Philippines on January 6th. We had our civil wedding on January 24th, and I returned from the Philippines on January 27th. So all in all, we were able to complete the process in about 18 days, but I would strongly advise having extra cushion in your trip to account for any delays that may occur throughout the process. So step number 1, anticipate a trip to the Philippines that's going to last 3 to 4 weeks. So for the next step, you're going to want to begin gathering all the documents that you need to take with you to the Philippines. So you'll need a valid passport that does not have an expiry date within 6 months of your anticipated trip. You'll also need an official or certified birth certificate with a seal on it. And if you've been married before, you'll need any divorce decrees and or death certificates if you're a widower. Now these 3 documents will also need to be apostilled, which is a process that's offered by the Secretary of State office in the state that issued the documents, of which they certify the document for legal international use. I live in the state of Illinois, so I went on the Secretary of State website and found that they offer walk-in apostille services at 2 locations in the state, and it costs like $2 for my birth certificate to be apostilled. If you do not live in the state that originally issued the document, a lot of Secretary of State offices offer a mail-in apostille service, and or you can work with a document verification company who will set up the apostille process for you. So the next step's a pretty big step. You're going to have to make an appointment either with the U.S. Embassy in Manila or the U.S. Consular Agency in Cebu City to get a document that's called an affidavit in lieu of certificate for capacity to marry. So that's a mouthful. But essentially the Philippine Statistics Authority requires that foreigners bring in a document called a Certificate of Legal Capacity to Contract Marriage to the Philippines in order to get married. It's just a document that proves that you're not already married in the country that you live in. Well, the U.S. doesn't provide that certificate because they don't have a statistical database that keeps track of marriages. So instead, the U.S. provides this affidavit in which the embassy basically states that as far as they know, you're agreeing to them in a formal setting that you're not already married, and or you provided any documentation to suggest that you're a widower or you've already been divorced legally and all of that. So again, these appointments can be made online, but they can only be made about a month in advance. And there's specific time slots that you have to sign up for that are on a first-come, first-served basis. Essentially, you need to schedule your 3 to 4 week trip to the Philippines, but then about a month before the trip, you need to sign up for this appointment and hope that it is in line with a time that you're either in Manila or Cebu City to go to the appointment. So obviously this means however you're getting to the Philippines, you're going to need a layover that's long enough for you to leave the airport, go to the embassy or the consular agency building, go through the appointment, and then get back in time for your trip to your final destination. In some cases, you may have to end up just going to your final destination and then scheduling a small return trip back to Manila or to Cebu City to go to your appointment and then go back to your final destination. That's actually what I had to do. Also, a very important piece of information is after you complete the appointment process, there will be a confirmation page that you will need to print out and take with you to your appointment. If for any reason you need to cancel and reschedule your appointment, you can also do that on the website. Just ensure that if you cancel the appointment and make a new appointment, that you print out the new confirmation page for your new appointment. Next, you need to make an online appointment with the Philippine Statistical Authority to get what's called a Sinomar. A Sinomar is a certificate of no marriage record, very similar to the certificate that you're either going to get from the U.S. Embassy or the U.S. Consular Agency, except this is a certificate from the Philippines stating that there's no record in the Philippines that you're already married. Both you and your fiancé will need one of these documents, so you'll need to set up an appointment for yourself and your fiancé. While this can be done after you're already in the Philippines, I would highly suggest a couple days before your trip, make the appointments with the Philippine Statistics Authority for you and your fiancé to receive your Sinomar documents. These can be made a couple days in advance, but fill up rather quickly. You will also need 1" by 1" or 2" by 2" passport-style photos. That is kind of shoulder-up headshots with a white or off-white background. These can either be obtained before you leave for the Philippines or after you get there, but you'll need photos for both you and your spouse. Also, if you wear anything like glasses or other eyewear, do not wear them in the photo. They want a clear picture of your face. Also, it's essential to make sure that you have multiple photocopies of each of these documents before you start the application process. For some documents, such as the Sinomar documents and your affidavit in lieu of certificate for capacity to marry, the Civil Registry Office will keep the original documents and only leave you with a photocopy. Other documents, such as the birth certificates, death certificates, etc., you will submit photocopies to the Civil Registrar Office, and you will obviously keep the original copy. So as part of the marriage application process, you and your fiancé will both have to attend a marriage counseling seminar, which is usually about a half-day class. And so before you travel to the Philippines, I would highly suggest having your fiancé contact the province, municipality, or city hall that you plan to start the marriage application process at and ask them when they hold their marriage counseling seminars. The province that I got married in only held their marriage counseling seminars on Thursdays. So if I arrived on a Friday, for instance, I would have to wait at least another week to be able to even take the marriage seminar. Having this information ahead of time is critical for determining whether or not you'll have enough time to complete the civil wedding process during your trip. As previously stated at the beginning of the video, once your wedding application has been submitted, there will be a minimum of a 10 working day waiting period. Since time is of the essence, you're going to want to make sure that this 10-day waiting period does not have any Filipino holidays or large community events coinciding with it. That could further delay the time that it takes to receive your marriage license. So that pretty well completes the list of things that you need to do prior to your trip to the Philippines. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about that appointment to receive your affidavit in lieu of certificate for capacity to marry. So I went to the U.S. Embassy in Manila, so I'm only going to be speaking on my experiences there. But you want to make sure that you show up to your appointment at least 30 minutes early, and make sure to have the following items with you: your passport, that appointment confirmation sheet, about $50 cash or Philippine peso equivalent, or a credit card. And then optionally, you can bring a template document for your affidavit in lieu of certificate of legal capacity to marry. So the U.S. Embassy website provides a sample affidavit that says sample watermarked across it. So I actually recreated that document in Microsoft Word and brought it with me. But when I got to the embassy, they actually said that they had a new template because they were having issues with some provinces accepting the old template. So they gave me a new template that they were confident would be accepted wherever I was going to set up the civil wedding. So after I got to the airport in Manila, I took a metered taxi to the U.S. Embassy office. And once you get there, you'll see a guard outpost out front, and the guard will look at your confirmation sheet and cross-reference it with his list of appointments for the day to make sure that you genuinely do have an appointment for the time that you're showing up. And then he'll lead you to the security station where you'll have to walk through a metal detector, and they will take a look in any bags or anything that you're bringing with you. I will note they do not allow any devices like cell phones, cameras, or even cables, charging cables, etc. In the embassy building. but they will hold on to those items for you at the security checkpoint and give you a ticket to come back and pick up the items after your appointment's finished. So I would advise packing light and not bringing a ton of things with you, although I know if you're stopping there during a layover, you may have to bring everything with you. So once you're through security, you'll go into the main embassy building. They'll ask again to see your appointment confirmation sheet and your passport, and they'll give you a ticket and send you on an elevator to go upstairs. You'll keep walking, you'll come to a waiting area, basically where you sit, and you'll see ticket numbers displayed on the TV in front of you. And once your ticket number is called, you'll go up to the window and request your affidavit. So once your number is called, you'll walk up to the agent desk, hand them your passport, and request the affidavit. You'll be given some paperwork, and then you'll be led to the cashier's office where you'll pay for the affidavit in the amount of $50 or Philippine peso equivalent. I believe you can also use a credit card. Then you'll go back to the waiting area and wait to be called up again by the agent. Once the agent calls you back up, you will provide an oath to the agent that you're not currently married. They will provide you with the signed affidavit with a seal on it, and you're good to go. Once you've received your affidavit, you'll want to make sure that you get multiple photocopies of it made. There are several copy shops around the Philippines, pretty well in anywhere you walk. Otherwise, if you're staying at any hotel or anything like that, oftentimes they can make photocopies for you as well. So now that you've received your affidavit from either the U.S. Embassy or the U.S. Consular Agency, you're now ready to go to your final destination. So before you officially get started with the marriage application process, you'll need to visit the local Philippine Statistics Authority based on the appointment that you scheduled before your trip. So once you arrive to the Philippine Statistics Authority, you and your fiancé will need to fill out some forms to apply for your Sinamar documents. These Sinamar documents can take 1 to 2 hours to be processed, so you might have to leave and come back to pick them up. So to start the marriage application process, you're going to need to visit the provincial town hall or the municipal or city hall in the area that your fiancé resides in. Once you're in the town hall, you'll need to navigate to the civil registrar's office. This is the office that handles marriage license applications. Once you've made it to the civil registrar's office, they'll hand you a list of requirements that are needed for the marriage application. Many of these items we've already talked about at the beginning of the video. The list that I was given by the civil registrar's office in the area in which I got married stated that we needed multiple copies of the following items: birth or baptismal certificates for both the foreigner and the Filipino fiancé, Sinamar documents obtained from the Philippine Statistics Authority for both the foreigner and the Filipino fiancé, your affidavit for legal capacity to marry, if applicable, any death certificates or divorce decrees that were also apostilled, valid identification for both parties, the 1x1 inch or 2x2 inch passport style photos, and the certificate from your marriage counseling seminar. So when you sign up for the marriage counseling seminar, typically this seminar will take place at the town hall or the municipal or city hall in the area that you applied for the marriage application. The seminar that my fiance and I attended was about 4 hours long. We started in the morning and it was over around noon. And it was a pretty fun class. You know, the guy that we took it with had a lot of humor, so he made it fun. Another important part of the marriage application process is if your fiancé is under the age of 21 or between the ages of 22 and 25. If your fiancé is under the age of 21, you'll be required to submit an affidavit of parental consent in which your fiancé's parents will have to come to the civil registrar's office and sign a consent form in front of witnesses allowing you to marry their daughter. If your fiancé is between the ages of 22 and 25, you'll need a similar document called an affidavit of parental advice, which can either be signed in person at the civil registrar's office by your fiancé's parents, or it can be signed outside of the civil registrar's office by your fiancé's parents as long as it's notarized. A couple of other miscellaneous documents that your spouse may be asked for are community tax certificates, cedulas, or barangay certificates. These can all be obtained at the provincial, municipal, or city hall in the area that your spouse lives. So once all these items are submitted to the civil registrar's office, your application will be submitted for final approval. And again, there will be a 10 working day minimum time period between the time that it's submitted for approval and the time that you can go and pick up your marriage license. Also, just to clarify, just because you're applying for your marriage license in the area that your fiancé resides in does not mean that the marriage license has to be used in that area. Once received, your license can be used anywhere in the Philippines for the next 120 days. Once you've received your marriage license, the next step is to schedule your wedding. The civil registrar office can help assign you a judge or a mayor to officiate the wedding. My wedding was held within the office of the local town mayor and was scheduled for 10 in the morning and lasted about 45 minutes. Be mindful that it may take some time to schedule these weddings, as the mayor or judge may have prior commitments or other weddings that they have to officiate. If you would prefer to have a church wedding as opposed to a civil wedding, this would be the time you'd reach out to your priest, minister, or local church pastor to schedule your church wedding. At the time you schedule your civil wedding, you'll also need to select 2 witnesses who will sign your marriage certificate. These witnesses can be anyone, friends, or family, as long as they are above the age of 18. At the end of the ceremony, the officiator, the witnesses, and you and your new spouse will sign a wedding certificate created by the local civil registrar's office. This certificate will need to be submitted to the Philippine Statistics Authority in order to receive your true official wedding certificate within 1 month. If you're planning to start the immigration process for your spouse to come to your country, you'll need to wait until you receive this official wedding certificate from the Philippine Statistics Authority before you can start the immigration process. So this pretty well concludes today's video. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to add them to the comments or email me directly at phillipsinthephilippines@gmail.com. Thank you.